to talk about biochar, which is one of the most important and most promising pathways for removing CO2 from the atmosphere. I'll leave you to it, guys.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. And thank you for being here. It's quite challenging. And I appreciate your trust in us. So I'm Lucia Brusegan, for those of you that have not met me before. And I'm the chairwoman at the International Biochar Initiative. So all biochar, we do all biochar, okay? So I'm here today and I'm pleased to have this incredible panel of people with Axel Renault from Net Zero here in person and Robert Hoglund, Francesco Guglielmi, Ines Serra, and Heloise Backland. They will introduce themselves a little bit later. Let's introduce this session with some kind of highlights on how biochar can contribute to this big family of carbon removals. So I'm going to give you a presentation. Sorry, Bea, can I have the presentation? Sorry. By the way, let me give a huge thank to this lady. She is really amazing and she's doing a job that is incredible. Thank you very much. So, biochar, unlocking climate, ecosystem, and ESG values through artisanal and industrial methods. I'm not sure how much you know about biochar, but basically there are two big ways or pathways to produce biochar, to get biochar. And I'm going to introduce these two pathways in order to achieve the removals that we need today. So the agenda will be setting the stage. It will be me giving some kind of general introductions. Then Robert Hoglund will say something about the role of biochar today in delivering carbon removals, because we know that biochar is the leaderboard in this sector, and showcasing impactful stories as Axel one and the others, of course. So let's move. Setting the stage. Biochar as viable carbon removal solution. Do you all know what biochar is? Yes. Okay, good. We can start from that. So the first point, we are all in agreement, I hope, that biochar is a soil improver. It's a soil amendment that improves the fertility, okay, given such conditions. But this is supported by a robust evidence. And this is the starting point. All biochar started here, but from these observations and scientific studies. Then something happened in 2018. IPCC acknowledged biochar as a carbon removal solution. What does it mean? It means that it was widely acknowledged that our biochar, that stuff that is produced from waste biomass and goes into the soil, that biochar is also rich in carbon, in stable carbon, and can reduce the carbon dioxide, which is in the atmosphere. So it can be a removal solution. And since then, we have seen industries that have started, including Net Zero, but all the industries that are working on these to exploit this aspect. That's why we are here. Okay. So there are three main considerations we need to do in order to get our ecosystem benefits, our value from biochar. The first one is the feedstock, the supply of the waste biomass streams that has to be sustainable. And it is important because starting from the feedstock, we know a lot of things on biochar. So we need to be able to understand how much biochar we have, how it is biomass we have, how this biomass is it scattered in the landscape, is it available in aggregated form, is it wet, how much water quantity is in this biomass. Is it seasonal? Is it an annual crop that is not available all the year round, or is it available on a regular basis? So how can we source this? How is the logistic around that? These are all questions that we need to understand, and they are important because the biomass gives us the carbon content that we can get out of our biochar. So this is the first point we need to address. The second one is the production technology, and this is extremely important because this technology can affect the permanence issue of our biochar. And we know that the permanence is a key aspect when we want to achieve carbon removal, as Axel can tell you a little bit later. So we need to understand which scale of operation we want to we can implement. We need to understand which type of reactor we want to use. Is it fast pyrolysis? Is it flash pyrolysis? Is it slow pyrolysis? There are so many different ways we can process our biomass. Sorry. And then, ultimately, is there a market for the physical biochar? Because we know that when we are able to produce our biochar, we will not be able to generate any carbon removal if we don't put the biochar somewhere in the soil. So that's the first point we need to understand. These are all questions that industries need to consider very carefully. If we think about biochar as a circular solution, we need to imagine something like that. Okay, we start from the waste biomass streams. We need, maybe that biomass is not exactly ready to be processed, but anyway, whatever we can dry, we can cut, chop, do whatever we need. We pyrolyze or gasify. We get the energy out of that, and maybe the energy, we can recover that energy, but it is not, maybe it's not clean. The syngas has to be cleaned up, or maybe it can be recovered within the process. So the energy is one of the output of our system. And let's move to the other thing that we get out of this process, the biochar. I use the plural, biochars, and I will tell you in a moment why. So we get our biochar out of this pyrolysis process, and this biochar ultimately goes to the soil. But what happens here in the middle is the real magic of the industry today. So we can just simplify in this way. We do have something that we can use our biochar in a nutrient recycling circle, where we can capture the nutrients that are available in the landscape or blend the biochar with some fertilizers. We know that biochar alone can improve soils, can improve. We know that biochar together, used together with fertilizers, can improve crop yield by 22%. This is the results of metadata studies. And so this is a tremendous improvement of soil productivity. We can use our biochar in urban application, and that is, another option, okay? Then we can also use the biochar for other uses. For instance, in livestock, dairy farms. And in this case, our biochar will deliver other ecosystem services. For instance, on methane emissions, it can be a tool to manage methane emissions. We are not talking about methane in this panel, but it's really interesting. The bedding and the feeding of animals with biochar can help that. It can be used as water filtration, remediation. And this is the last important thing. We can use our biochar in the industry in functional biochars. What you can see down there, it's an incredible thing, and I would invite you to talk to this guy that is down there, because he will explain that this stuff here, it's steel. Well, it's not steel. It's done by rocks and carbon. okay, biocarbon. So it's really something, and it features like in steel. That is something that is happening today. And think about the built environment. Think about how the built environment can integrate biochar-based material, concrete. Those are huge, huge improvements that can be done with biochar. So here is why I prefer to call biochars plural, okay? Because there are so many different source feedstock that can be used and so many process differences that can feature different biochars. So biochar is a family of product. Keep this in mind. This is a very nice slide that has been produced by the UK Biochar Research Centre, and they are working on this. How can we produce our biochar? Well, there are two main pathways, industrial and artisanal ways, and they all deliver carbon removal. So let's explore a little bit more how it works. But first of all, let's talk about quality. Quality is an important part of our biochar, but sometimes we need to understand what we refer to when we speak about quality. Quality is contextual. Why? Because for CDR markets, quality primarily refers to stability, carbon content, and permanence of biochar. So when we are in this framework and we talk about how biochar is a good biochar, we refer to a biochar that has a highly carbon content and highly permanent in the soil. For soil applications, it's another thing. So a good biochar is a good stuff that improves the yield, meaning pH balance, porosity, mineral content. They are all elements that gives us the idea of how good is our biochar. They are not competitive things. They need to stay together. Across all cases, integrity is key, okay? So, and regardless of the scale of our operation, artisanal or industrial, the project must deliver what they claim, okay? So, which are the production pathways? The artisanal production, it is often decentralized, low-tech, and community-driven. It prioritizes self-consumption for local agricultural benefits. And there are co-benefits for the community, including women empowerment, which is an important feature, and the regenerative agriculture. It's suitable for corporate buyers, those that value community-based carbon projects. These could be good pathways. If we move to industrial production, we have larger scale, often automated, and they generate carbon credits and participate to biochar markets as a primary revenue driver. This production can be more standardized and traceable, so that's why buyers like this most, and appeals to corporate looking for scalable, measurable climate impact. Whatever, you need to be able to monitor and track your biochar operation and where your biochar comes from. So systems to monitor are vital. Which definitions aligns better with your ESG net zero targets? Let's see the differences. Scale of production, control and consistency, economic impact, environmental considerations, research and development. All these different aspects are key to understand how a biochar system is deployed and the value of our carbon removals. So, starting from this, I'm really pleased to introduce you our first guest, Robert Hoglund. Robert is a researcher and is the major source of information to understand carbon removal markets, voluntary carbon removals today And we are pleased to have Robert, with us today. Robert will help us understand the role that biochar is playing today in the voluntary carbon market. So, Robert, can you hear me? The floor is yours, Robert.
Thank you so much. Feels like my video was locked on, but can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you. You're kind of frozen.
Video closer as I was going to start talking, but hopefully turn.
Okay, we see the slides. Thank you, Robert.
So I'm going to talk about the CDR market, the market for durable carbon removal, and Biochar's role in it. So CDR.fr is a data source that tracks the purchases and sales of all types of durable CDR and more. And Milky Wire is an impact that also supports carbon removal with many of them Biochar products and supported by and so sit in various advisory groups on carbon removal, white papers and so on.
Robert, can you please be close to the microphone?
Yeah, sure. Do you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this space has, of course, has had a rapid development with many carbon removal methods now being tested out in the real world. Some of them on a very early stage, kind of going the first steps from the lab, like direct air capture. There's a bit more mature, already removing carbon at scale, like Biochar. And this early stage carbon removal credit market has had a rapid development, starting in 2021 with the kind of first serious purchases. And it's mostly companies that are buying these carbon removal credits to use towards their own targets or because they want to support the early market to help it grow, kind of broaden the playing field. As we can see on this graph, the purchases for future delivery of tons have increased very rapidly with a high growth on year. So looking at this, you can see that the market got off to a very good start. However, most of it, of the volume that's contracted comes from Microsoft, so it's quite dominant by one buyer. But 2025 eclipses the other years, mainly thanks to some very large offtake agreements. And also looking at deliveries, the first chart was the contracted tons. If we look at the carbon removal that's already in the ground, that's also a healthy growth. This 2025 bar shows only the first 3 quarters, so the end of the year should also be significantly larger than 2024. So we think that the rate of growth of deliveries, carbon removed, is also encouraging. It's in line with expectations. Of course, the tons delivered is much lower than the previous slide, which was the tons purchased. That's natural and something to expect because when you're developing new technologies and starting new projects, that will take some time to remove the carbon. And many of these deals that have been signed are for 10 years. So it's natural that the deliveries will be slower. If you look at the total kind of market and take out Microsoft, you see that there's a log scale, so you don't see how big Microsoft is, but they're dominating. And if you look at the buyers outside of Microsoft, it's a little bit more flat with some growth, but not growing as fast as we want. So we definitely want more companies to get involved in the durable CDR markets because it's something that they will need to reach their net zero targets. And if they don't start buying now, we won't have the capacity to meet all the carbon removal needs of the future. So these purchasers' numbers need to go up, and we want to see more deals being made. So it's not so dependent on the biggest buyer. If you look at what are the types of carbon removal methods that are being bought, we see that these biomass-based approaches using photosynthesis to capture the carbon is dominating, particularly BECCS, because we have multiple multi-year agreements of deliveries from bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, but also biochar, biomass storage, and then the other methods occupy a smaller share. But BECCS is by far the biggest when it comes to number of tons. But if you look at the most common method, when it comes to new buyers and what method has the most purchasers, then we see that biochar completely dominates. It's by far the most common CDR method for buyers to transact from. Of course, many of them have smaller volumes, kind of starting out by buying hundreds of tons maybe, or thousands of tons in some cases. But especially new buyers are using biochar as the kind of entry point into the durable CDR ecosystem. And it's not so strange because biochar can deliver now, it has co-benefits, and it's also the cheapest, or among the cheapest, together with biomass direct storage of these durable CDR methods, so significantly cheaper than all the others. And it's my assessment that the high-cost removals have had early-stage customers that are willing to support and kickstart the ecosystem and pay a high cost, including Milky Wire. But the pool of buyers that are willing to pay very high costs, hundreds of tons per ton, is probably quite thin. And especially new buyers, and I think the next tranche of carbon removal buyers will likely be a bit more price sensitive, which leads me to believe that low-cost methods like biochar is going to probably dominate in the future, in the next coming years, when it comes to people that enter the CDR market. If we zoom in a bit on biochar, we see that the purchase volume here is also increased quite rapidly. We have some large-scale deals that we'll hear more about, and the deliveries is encompassing most of the deliveries of removed tons that we can see on CDR Pavilion. And we have some leaderboards as well. We can see who are the ones that bought most biochar, and Microsoft dominates the biochar category as well, not the least because of some deals with XMAD that we'll hear more about later. But there are tech companies like Google. We have finance actors like the Swedish bank SEB, JP Morgan Chase, two insurance companies here, and BCG, a consulting company. And this reflects also what we see in the durable CDR market, that it's mostly high profit, low emission companies that are entering it and buying these tons, which is natural, I think. The hard to abate companies have high costs in transitioning their own value chain and reducing their own emissions. And it's this type of companies that is the beachhead market for new technologies like carbon removal. And it's far from fully tapped. There are many other high income, low profit, low emission companies that could buy CDR that haven't started to do so yet. And as we can see here, what's the average volume when buying CDR for what kind of deals? If we take out Microsoft, you see that the average per purchaser is in the hundreds of tons. Average per deal is around 200 tons, and the median is 73 tons now. So it's not huge deals. Many companies are trialing, making a first purchase to see how it works. And of course, many of the biochar providers are also having relatively small facilities and delivering maybe a couple of thousand tons of credits per year and so on. So it also fits with the size of many of the early startups. Suppliers are led by XMAD here by far when it comes to both tons sold and then tons delivered, but also Varaha in India, Carboneers across Africa, Apram, and then we have some American ones as well in the lead. But we have hundreds of biochar companies that have sold, that are, maybe not 100 that have sold, but we have hundreds of biochar companies that want to sell carbon credits, and quite a few that have sold and delivered as well. And my assessment fits with the VC firm Counteract that did kind of a deep dive on biochar and the economics of it, which are the biochar providers that are going to make it and be kind of prosperous. And I think that you need to have this sweet spot of where either you produce high quality biochar, sell the credits, and get well paid for all the co-products, of course the physical char, but also the heat or other co-products, or even in some cases electricity. Or you are in a low-cost production location where you can produce those carbon credits cheaply, and you don't have as much pressure to sell co-products. What wouldn't work is if you are in a high-cost location and only rely on credits. So the companies that would be in the lower right quadrant here would be the ones that will have hard time in competing against others. because we do see that in Europe and US, biochar providers can sell carbon credits at the same price as providers in the global south, but they also sell their physical biochar in many cases at a higher price and have more income from that. And yeah, as I said, we at Milky Wire have supported many companies, two of them on the screen today, Husk and Biosora. Actually, the 10 biochar companies that we supported have all been in the global south, also much due to the high co-benefits, increasing incomes of low-income farmers, increasing crop yields, and kind of building up the poor soils that are in many places. So that's one of the key reasons that we chose these 10 suppliers. Well, the 10th one is not here, but it's also Flambu with Carboneers in Ghana. And companies can both donate to Milky Wire's charitable fund or buy carbon removal credits as well. And CDR.fi have a lot more data. So if you're interested in the carbon removal ecosystem and want to understand more about who's selling what and what's the prices and when is it delivered and whatnot, you can go to the website, which the name is the website, but there's also a partner portal where you can log in and explore a lot more. So yeah, that's just a quick run through, and I think just going to leave some time for questions, I think, as well, right?
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. I think someone can have some questions from. Yes.
Thank you, Lucia. So I'm a chemist, and I have a question to you first. So I don't quite get the concept. You showed it's nice circular loop, and if it's a circular loop, you don't remove carbon from the system. I understand this depends on the timescales, but can you explain to me where actually the removal and storage happens in the process?
The removal is the biochar. The biochar contains the carbon. The carbon is stored because the biochar has a fraction of carbon that is permanent, and when you put it into the soil, it stays there for time scale relevant to the climate change. So that's how biochar works. The biomass stores the carbon in their the trunk, the plants, and the leaves, and so. And that carbon, the normal carbon cycle releases that carbon into the atmosphere. With biochar, you fix the carbon through pyrolysis, and that carbon is not released anymore, it stays down. So that's how you remove the carbon. So is there any questions for Robert? I have a question, Robert, for you. What's the average price of a carbon removal of a certificate, carbon certificate with biochar, an average price?
Sure, it's $150. But yeah, it differs a little bit between different.
Stay close to the microphone, please.
So it's around $150 for biochar credits.
Thank you. Any other question? Please.
Thanks so much. I'm Alyssa, and I work as the ALC specialist for carbon projects. And before that, I work with Indian farmers, develop artisanal biochar projects. So my question is around artisanal biochar. Because I like the project type, I think it's a good idea. We use the residues from the farmers, and then we do a circular economy thing. But I found on the market, there is certain buyers. People saying that artisanal biochar is not of higher quality, the MRV is too tough, and that it cannot sell very well. And I heard one investor saying that either you will be very great on social or you're very great on quality. For freelance thinking, artisanal biochar is not great on quality. And also they did a comparison. If we do natural-based solutions, the social benefits is the same as the artisanal biochar. And nature-based solution can be cheaper. So they found artisanal biochar is not investable. Curious to know what we need to do to educate the industry about all this.
Good question. Robert, what would you suggest? how can we improve our capacity to educate buyers on all the ecosystem values that a biochar system can deliver?
Science has evolved quite a lot in the last few years, especially on permanence, and all the new science points to biochar being even more permanent than it was before. And when it comes to MRV, we have great ways of doing it. Of course, there's still some things that we can make even more watertight, tracking the biochar final application, for example, so that we know that it ends up in soil and so on. But I think we need to inform about the science that is there, be honest about the things that could go wrong, and then telling about how we make sure that we fill those gaps. And I think biochar is on a pathway of getting more and more established as we see more and more articles and hear interests. I think the credibility of the method and the assurance that buyers need is slowly building this.
Thank you. Other question, Robert, for you. You are a superstar.
Hello. My name is Takudo. I'm from a company called Towing. So we are a microbial company using a biochar as the carrier of the microbial. So my question is actually we work with a lot of FMCG companies, like for example, like a Coca-Cola or those companies to transform their supply chain in the concept of carbon insetting. So I was wondering about what's your observation, Robert, about I think you're talking about the carbon credit, but how's that? Because we have a lot of projects about the carbon insetting. So rather than generating credits, we directly remove the scope 3 reduction, and most of the companies are interested in of our clients is interested in insetting. So how is that changing the dynamics of the biochar market in your perspective? So.
We see that quite a few, especially in the ag sector, are interested in biochar that's being applied or produced from the fields where they're buying the commodities from, like cotton or food commodities. So that's definitely something that makes it easier, I think, to buy biochar when you can connect it directly into your own supply chain. And if you have flag targets and an SBTI target, then you could account for that as an emission reduction. Like you neutralize your own emissions in the flag sector. So that makes it, I think, more investable, but also a stronger story. So definitely see that interest.
Hi, my name is Kalyani, and I am an ESG practitioner. I've been within ESG for the last 15 plus years, and I'm also working with the biochar project developers right now in US. So just wanted to know, I mean, when you are analyzing the projects, the biochar projects, so there are this voluntary, there is this mandatory, there is also this regulatory frameworks, when you talk about ESG safeguards. From your perspective, I mean, what do you think is the best option? There is a mixture of SBTI, which is voluntary, or GRI, coupled with more SFDR, which is a regulatory, or the regional. How do you actually, which one, what could be your advice, when it comes to the frameworks adaptation? Thank you.
Best option for what? I couldn't really hear it.
So my name is Kalyani. Can you hear me now?
Sorry, if you can just repeat the last part of the question, the best option for...
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Certainly.
Okay, so when it comes to ESG frameworks adaptation within biochar, can you hear that? Yeah? Which one do you think is the most complex or less complex? For example, we have a regulatory, we have a voluntary, and also mandatory frameworks. For example, GRI, SBTI, and we also have a regulatory ones like SFDR, and then the regional ones like SEBI. Yeah. So how do you actually see that the most complex to the less complex when it comes to adapting to ESG safeguards for the biochar projects? So is it clear?
I mean, currently it's all voluntary, right? So companies buy because they want to use it to reach targets or to support the ecosystem, and it's not part of any compliance yet. I mean, SBTI is not the best choice if you want to use the carbon removal, because it's currently you can't account for it right now against your targets. ISO standard that's coming out, I think, during COP probably. It's going to be more permissible for those use cases. And then we see that biochar will be included in the EU CRCF, and then maybe included in the EU ETS as well as a consequence. Then it would be part of that frame. I think that the people who produce biochar, would be able to deliver no matter what the buyer. Now I want to hand over to the real stars, the people doing the carbon.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much for your presentation and for the Q&A session. If you want to stay with us, that will be great. Otherwise, we will move on with our panel. So, yes, I'm really glad to have you here. 4 panelists that are amazing leaders of this industry. We have Axel Renaud, CEO and co-founder of Net Zero, which is a French company with biochar operations in Africa and in Brazil, scaling very rapidly. And we have Heloise Buckland from Husk, co-founder and chairwoman, and Husk produce biochar from rice husks, right? And delivering co-benefits to the community. We have Ines Serra-Bautes. She's based in Kenya, and Ines is working with smallholder farmers and biochar. And we do have the leaderboard of CDR biochar carbon removals, ExoMad, with Francesco Guglielmi, and I'm sure you all know what they are doing. They are one order of magnitude bigger than the other leaderboards in CDR delivery. So I'm really happy that you are with us. And I asked Francesco to introduce the company, himself and the company, before moving to the panel session. Please, Francesco, the floor is yours. Francesco, can you please check your microphone? We don't hear you. Okay, let's move to Heloise. Are you ready? Can you
go ahead? Okay, so do we have the time for the introduction, right? It's just introductory remarks and presentation, right?
Yes.
Or it's just right now. Sorry, I'm a bit confused.
Do you want to show some slides?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'll start right away. Okay, so let me introduce you. I mean, I know a lot of you know already about ExoMad, but I will be really quick. Okay, so thank you everyone. Thanks to IBI and the CDR 30 for this space between COP and the exposure to be here. I'm Francesco Guglielmi, Head of Sales and Marketing at ExoMad Green. So basically, ExoMad Green, thanks to this trajectory we have a really good base of customers we're serving currently. And the base problem for the people that do not know us is this one. This is the base problem we're addressing. ExoMad is Bolivia's largest, also Bolivia's largest wood exporter. And in all of the years in the market, we have witnessed this scenario. We have all of the sawmills that are operating in the country. They start processing the wood, then they start to fill up with residues, and then since they don't have any more space to process their wood, they just build they dig a hole, they make a fire pit, and they burn all this biomass. So this was the base problem that we're
Francesco, can you hear us? You're frozen. Okay. Francesco? Okay, Francesco is solving some issues. So we can move with the other panelist, Heloise, and then get back to Francesco later when things are getting better. Heloise, are you ready? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
great.
Absolutely.
Welcome,
Okay.
Heloise.
Thank you so much. Yes, and thank you everyone for inviting us to share our story. My name is Eloise Buckland, and can you see my screen? Just checking.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So my name's Eloise Buckland. I'm the co-founder and chairwoman of Husk. And our vision is to accelerate the transition to more regenerative agriculture through transforming excess biomass, in the first instance rice husk, into biochar and then into biochar-based fertilizers. And we do this really for three reasons. The first and foremost is to regenerate soils. Given that 1/3 of the world's soils are currently degraded through the excess use of synthetic fertilizer, soil restoration is at the heart of what we do. Obviously, our second aim is sequester carbon, so we are in this for the long-term carbon removal, which Lucia has already explained. And thirdly is to support the livelihoods of the farmers in the global south, who ultimately are the hardest hit by climate change, exacerbated, as you all know, by extreme droughts and weather patterns that threaten not only their crops, but their livelihoods and food security. So our business model works whereby we have long-term partnerships with agribusinesses who have excess biomass. So here you can see one of our installations in Cambodia. In the green is a rice mill, and you can see they have excess biomass, which is rice husk, that they don't use for their own purposes. And this is often burnt to be removed or dumped in the rivers, or in some cases used in the brick industry and burnt in open air, causing toxic fumes, very harmful to health. So what we do is we process that rice husk using world-class pyrolysis technology that is certified by Carbon Standards International and by CSI. And we then transform that into biochar-based products. So you can see in the picture here, we start with the rice husk, we turn that into biochar, but then we go one step further and turn that biochar into biochar-based fertilizers. Those fertilizers, we then work with agricultural cooperatives and input distributors, and they ultimately sell those to smallholder farmers. And you can see an example of one of our end customers here. So the fertilizers that ultimately reach our farmers look and feel like other fertilizers, and serve to improve the soils, to increase the yields, and ultimately improve the net revenue of farmers by lowering their input costs. Due to the biochar's ability to improve the soil, there's less synthetic fertilizer needed. And so what we've done over the last 6 years, we started in 2019 in Cambodia, is removed carbon. The numbers are not as big as those numbers that you saw on CDR FYI, but these are the ones. This is what we've delivered: 2,800 tons of carbon delivered, around 5,000 hectares regenerated of soil, and we believe at least 6,000 farmers have benefited from our products. But really, I think perhaps where we've really learned over the last 6 years is that you need to have a farmer-first approach. So when we started selling biochar alone back in 2019, this was bought by NGOs who were happy to support farmers and give them biochar for free. The farmers then needed to mix that with compost, which involved labor costs. And although that worked in the soil to improve their yields and increase their resilience, it was a bit of a pain, to be honest. And we discovered that it would be difficult to sell biochar alone, and hard to make this commercially viable, because farmers really need something that's ready to go. With increasing labor costs, and aging smallholder farmer population, the farmers that we're working with in the Global South need something in a bag that is firstly ready mixed. So the biochar is mixed with other nutrients that each crop needs. And over the years, we've had now around 6 years of R&D on developing our biochar-based fertilizers to really suit the specific needs of specific crops and the specific stages of crop. So a rice crop will need a soil improver at the beginning when the soil is being prepared, but then in the flowering stage will need a certain nutrient, and then in the later stage of the plant will need another kind of nutrient. So we've adapted our biochar-based fertilizers to the needs of farmers, and not only in the formulations, but also the format. So in some cases in Southeast Asia and many other countries, farmers are now using drones increasingly to distribute their fertilizers. So many of our products are granulated so that they can fit in a drone. And we also highly believe in the transition to regenerative agriculture, which means not immediately moving to organic, but slowly reducing the use of synthetic fertilizers. And, you know, the global agri-food system, I think, currently is responsible for around 20% of global emissions. And nitrogen alone, nitrogen fertilizer is 2% of global emissions. So the aim of getting the biochar in the soil to enable the soil to do its work and reduce the leaching and reduce the emissions to air of that nitrogen through more effective soil management is really the business we're in. So we're very much about more than carbon removal. And I think as an industry, if we can reduce the global, the greenhouse gas emissions from fertilizer use through the use of biochar in the fertilizer industry, we will go way beyond what we could even dream of just in terms of the carbon removal. So that's why we're in the business of building soil, sinking carbon, and improving lives. We are in Cambodia for the last 6 years, in Vietnam for the last 2 years, and I'm very excited about extending beyond Southeast Asia in the future. So thanks very much for listening. I hope I didn't overextend my time, and look forward to your questions.
No, you're perfect. Thank you very much. Francesco, are you back with us? Can you hear us? Are you connected? Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry, I had a technical difficulty.
Yes, we understand.
Okay,
you can start from where you were. Okay, the floor is yours, Francesco.
Okay, so sorry, can you help me? Which slide is the one that you know about, the one that you saw?
We were on the second slide.
After the video.
Okay, it was okay. So just give me a second.
We have seen the video with all the peat,
the
burners. Just move from there.
Okay, great. So just 1 second. Okay, so basically what we do is that we collect biomass residues. These residues.
Excuse me, we don't see anything here.
Just a second, probably there is some lag right now with the connection. We should see it by now, probably.
No, not yet. But go ahead, move it. Go ahead.
Okay, there we are. Okay, so what we do is we collect biomass residues from the sustainable forestry industry. We transport them and stock them. Then we pyrolyze this biomass, and then the biochar we produce, we hand it out to the indigenous farming communities and medium-sized farming operations. We do it for free. We do not sell the biochar. So our project is right now located in Concepcion and Riberalta. We have 2 factories, each with a capacity. Right now, we recently expanded them. So Concepcion went from having a capacity of removing 600,000 tons of CO2 per year to 120,000 per year. Riberalta has passed from 60 also to 140,000 tons per year. We are currently building the Guarayos plant, which will be the largest biochar plant the largest biochar plant on Earth. So that factory will produce around 360,000 tons that it will of CO2. I mean, it will remove from the atmosphere 360,000 tons. We have scouted a couple of 2 places for further 2 factories. Right now, we have an installed capacity of roughly 240,000 tons, and we're going to scale up by 2027 to remove 1 million tons per year. So that is going to generate over 500,000 tons of biochar. It's going to take 5 facilities and it's going to generate 2,500 green tech jobs and bring all the co-benefits that these projects usually bring to the towns where we operate. So in order to summarize a little bit, just 1 second. Okay, in order to summarize a bit, we collect biomass residues. We have removed so far from the atmosphere 200,000 tons of CO2. We're currently the world's largest supplier of CDR in terms of delivery, and our mission is to reach the megaton. So we are, some very important part is the co-benefits we bring. Besides cleaning the air in this town where we operate, we generate jobs, and we have a community engagement program which entails support in health, in agriculture, in culture, and in urban transformations. We operate in 3 towns currently in Bolivia, and our operations impact over 250,000 people in one way or another.
This is amazing.
And we have fertilized. Thank you.
Go ahead.
For a final point, we have fertilized so far 20,000 hectares. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. It's amazing. The scale of your operations is really impressive. So Ines, you have your 3 minutes presentation. Go ahead with your Kenya biochar dream.
Thank you so much, Lucia and Idea. I'm really grateful. And going after Francesco, thinking big but starting small in our case. This is Nes. I'm Spanish, originally from Barcelona. I've been obsessed with soil since I'm a kid and outdoor sports. And I literally have like 150 bottles of soil collection. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Biochar. I'm also part of the committee of Carbon Removal Kenya, where I'm based. I'm an engineer and architect by background. However, I've been working in renewable energy transition and strategic consulting at Deloitte and McKinsey. So 3 years ago, sorry, let me share the slides really quickly. 3 years ago, we came to Kenya with our MBA business school that we were studying in ESG. And after studying, we stayed for a little bit longer, and it became super clear that soil degradation and climate is taking over farming. So I guess we're all here today because we agree and acknowledge that we're facing the biggest threat to humanity, that is climate change. And this is a global reality, though it's affecting sooner in the global south, as there's higher temperature vulnerability in farming. So in Africa itself, the population is expected to double while the amount of crops has declined, having a supply shortage that directly impacts food security, climate change, obviously, and poverty. And it all comes down to our soil, and the soil, it's super sick. So while corporates and governments here discuss ambitions, the decarbonization targets, there are few available solutions that are available that can work and that can go to scale until now. That we have biochar in town. So yeah, I think Lucia already well explained what biochar is for the audience, but it's this high porous material that is like a sponge and that can store carbon. In Biochar's case, the beauty of this is that we're also using it for storing carbon in soils, leaving a legacy for soil fertility and increasing farmers' profits, which is a really win-win. And by storing carbon in soils, we literally turn the left picture into the right one. And if they happen to be farm soils, we just make farmers' profits increase. So this is our journey. While in the second year of the MBA, we got the 250K award from the X Prize, and we went all the way journey of building the company right after graduation. It really felt like building the industry. It still feels like that today. I'm pretty sure my peers can relate. But yeah, we did build and prototype our first pyrolysis reactor that later escalated, and we got the patent on. We got a lot of learning on over 1,000 different biochar combinations in which we were designing the best design of the equipment with a high pH monitoring and high carbon removal as the key drivers. We then launched the first industrial biochar plant in Kenya and got the ICROA certification. And we got over 2 years of learning within production, in which we now redefined our tech design at scale. We recently secured funding from Nimbus and Atmosphere, and we are now 3 months away from increasing 10x production capacity.
Thank
so
you.
far since last year, production. Okay, this is few of the partners. I thought I had another minute.
Yes, we will catch up with during the conversation, because we have Axel here in person, and Axel is from Net Zero. And Axel, just say something about Net Zero and the journey you're doing. And I'm also ask you, can you please tell us why biochar is different from the other technologies? I mean, we know that biochar is part of this big family, and we have sister technologies. They're all different, but what is really the point for biochar? How it is different?
So I'll start talking about biochar, and then I'll talk about net zero. Very happy to be here. I mean, biochar is the central technology for carbon removal. We've heard from Robert, but actually if you look the other side, you see biochar right in the middle. And it's not by chance that biochar is right in the middle. Biochar is a technology that actually is the oldest man-made carbon removal technology. Biochar was invented here in Brazil, empirically, thousands of years ago, to improve agriculture. The ones of you who know about Terra Preta in the Amazon region, this is proto-biochar. And so actually, this is a 1,000-year-old technology. And if we believe in the Lindy effect, some of you might know about it, the Lindy effect says that if something has been around for a long time, it will continue to be around for a long time. So biochar has been around for thousands of years and will continue to be around for thousands of years. Not sure that everything that is on the wall here will be around 1,000 years from now. So that's the different thing about biochar, apart from representing 90% of the volumes of carbon removal and being the cheapest long-term carbon removal solution. I'm kind of paraphrasing what Robert was saying. So this is not a technology among many, it is the technology. And it is the solution, at least I feel, for the decade to come. Then maybe we have other technologies that can go at scale at reasonable cost. But today, there's no substitute to biochar. So what we're doing at Net Zero is we're doing things a bit different from the others. And I guess everyone would say that they are doing it a bit different. We started from the beginning trying to build a scalable model. So how do you bring this technology that is by nature very decentralized, that has its best use cases in rural areas of the global south? How do you make it scalable? And you make it scalable by a mix of technology, and actually there's much more technology needed in biochar. And Net Zero at the core is an R&D company. We design the systems, we design the MRV solutions, we design integrated solutions. Then, once you have this technology, how do you wrap it up in a business model that can be highly profitable, not marginally profitable, highly profitable, because you need lots of profits to attract capital. And if you want to scale biochar at the gigaton scale, you need billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions. So this needs to be a very profitable business. And then you need to make it replicable and find a way for many people to deploy a solution. And so we've wrapped our whole solution in a franchise model that is a one-stop shop for people who have access to biomass and who need biochar and want something that is tested, that runs, that immediately delivers carbon credits and delivers the whole chain. So not only produce biochar and then you have to scratch your head to say, how am I going to certify it and how am I going to commercialize the carbon credit? We bring the full solution. McDonald's bring a solution for hamburger production and distribution. Same thing for Net Zero. So that's what we're about.
Thank you, thank you. This is really very clear and interesting, and it's true. I mean, what is fascinating of our stories, what's happening in our community, it's that everyone has a different story to tell about its biochar journey. So let's move to impacts. What are the impacts that your activities are generating? And I would love to start from the biggest company here in our panel. Francesco, you are really impressive in the volumes that you are delivering, and your plans, it's really amazing. So what the impact is, what impacts are you generating in your operations?
Well, yes, we can say that throughout this journey that we started the first year removing 30,000 tons, then 60. Now we have reached the 200,000 tons. The impacts are beginning to be very, very visible on the ground. We have reduced the number of fires on sawmills by almost 80%, by almost 90%. We have as I was saying, we have fertilized over 20,000 hectares. We have conducted at least 80 experiments of field trials, and we can say now with a certainty that the average of yield increase rate that has been reflected in the agriculture of these areas has been around 12% across the board in several crops. And of course, we cannot leave behind all the, let's say, benefits from which we have been able to reduce between 80 and 90% cases of acute respiratory illnesses in these areas, conjunctivitis cases, and we're beginning to measure a lot of the SDG impacts on the ground, which I think they're now coming into play. We've all heard the last comments in the industry that it's also about human welfare. So we're also, this is also visible, and we're documenting it as we scale.
Thank you, thank you. It's clear. I mean, biochar, of course, it deals with carbon dioxide removals, and these are leading this industry. They are very important markets, but biochar is not only VCM. Heloise, what about you? What key best capture the impact that Husk is generating?
So our impact is threefold, as you can see on the strap line. So in terms of soil, we estimate that we've regenerated 4,700 hectares. And how we measure our soil improvement is, biochar, in my mind, works in three ways. One is the soil structure. So it improves the soil structure. So it's more aerated if it's clay soil. It has more structure if it's sandy. And both of these for floods or drought help the resilience of farmers through the better structure in the soil. But also the soil chemistry. So a lot of the soils we work with are very acidic. So we've had significant increases in the pH of the soil, so the soil chemistry, and the nutrient uptake efficiency, which means ultimately farmers need to use less synthetic fertilizers, which really is, I can't emphasize enough how that is the co-benefit that has such an impact in terms of climate change, by reducing the nitrogen loss through poor soils. And then the soil biology, we've done a lot of work on the increased microbial activity in the soil. We just recently had some results just this week on 150% greater earthworm density in the soils on some of the trials we've done on coffee recently. So soil structure, soil chemistry, and soil biology are ways we're measuring the impact of the improvement in soil. And then in terms of livelihoods, 6,000 farmers, around 30,000 individuals' lives impacted. And we're measuring this because our fertilizers are going to ultimately smallholder farmers who are challenging to reach, and we're in a very competitive environment where ultimately we're competing with NPK, with cheap synthetic fertilizers, and encouraging a transition to more regenerative practices that do invest in the soil. So that's how we measure our impact. We've created 60 jobs in Cambodia and Vietnam. And I think, like everyone on this call, our ambition is that this is a scalable, replicable model. And we're now in our first country replication building in Vietnam, what we've piloted in Cambodia, and looking forward to working in other countries. But Vietnam alone has 10 million farmers, so we do feel there's a huge opportunity for increasing impact there. I will let the others speak. I know we're all short of time.
Thank you very much, Heloise. Amazing. I think Ines can echo what you were sharing with us. Ines, what about you? Co-benefits and impacts in Kenya?
Yes, so far we've reduced 2,700 tons of waste that would have been otherwise burned, and we transformed them in over 900 tons of biochar that restore 500 hectares of farmland soils and remove 1,300 tons of CO2. We are obsessed with the agronomic impact of biochar in terms of regenerating the soils. And so we're measuring a lot in the before and after biochar application. We have right now more than 20 demo trials roll over across 10 different crops. I've mentioned earlier on the 10,000, on the 1,000 combination of biochars database that we've created. We are also measuring the farmers' impact. So far, 4,000 farmers at 66% higher profits, with consistently 25% yield increase, saved 14,000 liters of water, which is super important as the country struggles with water overall. And then we created a team of 30 biosorters in our first industrial plant in Kenya, in which I'm excited that 80% of the leadership remain women. Among other achievements, we're super proud of the investors that we got on board and the team. We got 8.8 million carbon renewal agreements, and then Cross certified, which was a big milestone for us, as then proves that the solution is available, is credible, and can go to scale. And then finally, we've submitted a carbon policy letter to the government on Kenya, as we're lobbying a lot of CDR from the country. I'm really excited for what's ahead in Kenya and in the biochar space.
Thank you. I think what you're doing is amazing, because it's not only the technology, it's the people. And we know that when you are trying to introduce something which is new, come on, it's so tough. I mean, you go to a farmer and you say, hey, use this stuff because it's better. That's the real challenge I see in your operations. So let's move to challenges and successes. If you were just sitting down and thinking, oh my God, what I have done so far, I'm really proud of, what would be this? Heloise, what would you be this I'm really proud of?
I'm really proud of, and fellow biochar fans I hope resonate, but with developing a granulated organomineral biochar blend specifically for rice crops, and then it was specifically for coffee, and specifically for high value crops, horticulture, fruit and vegetables. So
oh my God. Well, we have a backup plan. Axel, you're here. We are lucky.
So I'm lucky to be the only 3D option. Actually, to fully take advantage of the 3D thing, because my colleagues can't do that. We've been talking about biochar, but I guess most of you know what it is. But this is basically, it's written in French. Sorry, we're a French company, but this is carbon that was floating, CO2 that was floating over coffee fields in Brazil, that was captured by photosynthesis and then stabilized. So when we talk about biochar, that's the stuff.
Thank you, lifesaver. No, no.
Do you want me to do some dancing or talk about the challenges of dancing?
I want you to address some of the questions of the points. I mean, what are your challenges right now?
I think, like for many of our colleagues, funding is the big challenge today, because although biochar has proven to be the dominant technology and the winning technology for carbon removal, there is a massive asset misallocation. And so a lot of money has gone to kind of frontier technologies that cannot scale, and not even is going to biochar. And it's not as if we had a lot of time. You know, IPCC says we hear it today and those days. We need to remove 10 billion tons of CO2 per year in 2050. 10 billion tons, this is more than what the oil and gas combined sector extract every year. You see the amount of assets that has been deployed to do that. We need to deploy the same kind of thing in 25 years. You know, the clock is ticking. And so it's not a question about, you know, dreaming about future very efficient technologies. It's also building scale. And we heard, you know, Exomat's trying to build scale. They are the largest in volume. We are the largest in number of plants. We are minuscule. So we need to raise to... We need to raise to gigatons. And so funding is the big problem. Funding is how do we basically mobilize at scale the money that is needed to start with what is already proven, already available, and that has all the co-benefits that we've heard about.
Thank you. Thank you for being our 3D presenter. So, Heloise, thank you. I will pose the same question to Francesco. Francesco, what are the main successes? I mean, it's clear to me, you have a list of successes, but from your angle, I think, what's the main thing that you will mention about Exomat, about what you are doing?
Yeah, I mean, if we talk about challenges and successes at Exomat Green, well, one of the major challenges was to actually start the project, because we started very early on, and then we had to learn everything about scaling in a market that it was very new. So that first learning curve has been really, really tough, because we were kind of pioneering in it. And the challenge we're facing right now is to rapidly scale up to the megaton. And that entails a whole lot of movement, financing, how to optimize the machines ever more to produce while keep controlling and balancing out the quality of the product we're offering, and also keep in mind the co-benefits and everything that entails this program to be successfully replicated in each one of these cities.
Yes, thank you very much. And I move to Ines. Ines, I know it's not easy. It's not easy. You are a young woman, young entrepreneur, with lots of goodwill and good intention. What are the barriers that you are facing, and what would be useful to have to boost your capacity to grow?
Yeah, I do see 4 key barriers to be overcome in the next few years. The first one, which I think Axel said, we just got cut off, but is funding. So billions have been deployed towards DAC, 3.5 billion alone in US public funding. Yet Biochar is delivering the majority of durable renewables today. And so as we get tech scale ready, we expect capital to be a bit rebalanced toward near-term reliable towns that can support us all here. The second one, which kudos, Eloise, on your progress here, is R&D biochar application at scale level. So field trials are strong. We only have like 2 years of evidence. The outcomes are super site-specific, crop-specific, and then need time. Like nature, by essence, takes time. And I think it's the same with other use cases of biochar in construction, which we need like years of evidence before scaling them up beyond lab scale level at university kind of scale. Then the third one, which I'm super annoyed, is the lab certification process. So I don't know how it is for the rest of you, but Global South has obviously all the potential of scaling biochar carbon removal due to the amount of rich feedstocks with the farmers' impacts. Yet the certification process remains super Europe-US focused. They have super long lead times, and this involves extra heavy cost. In our case, they have to ship the samples in the luggage, which and then flying back to Spain. And we've built a lab in-house for self-monitoring purposes just to make it under the 3-month certification guidelines. So I think the last time I checked, there were only 9 accredited labs for these standards, mostly concentrated in Germany and the US. And I hope they open one in Africa, hopefully in Kenya, selfishly. But I think Africa has to be at the forefront. And then the last one Robert mentioned before is the carbon bioconcentration, which is a bit risky. From the insight that we got, Microsoft accounted for a very large share of high durability purchases in 2024, mainly to ExoMats. But yeah, we need to create this network of effect of getting more buyers entering into the market to diversify a bit so that we can get scale ready, because deploying the machines already takes a while. As much as we want to make it shorter, it's CapEx intensive business, and machines is what it takes to remove CO2.
Yes. Thank you, Ines. Very clear. Lab, is there anyone here that is willing to start a lab in Africa and in Southeast Asia? That could be a good business. So, Heloise.
I'm down to put you in touch. I've done the research. I cannot open that myself, obviously. But yeah, I've done the research if anybody's interested.
Thank you. Heloise, do you have anything to add to what Ines has just shared with us? What are the challenges, the barriers that you think?
Yeah, I absolutely echo what my colleagues have said. Obviously, funding is critical for any incipient, nascent sector. Maybe just to add a couple, 3 new points. One would be market adoption of the biochar. So it was very useful, Robert explained, there are 2 business models. Either you have the biomass almost for free, and therefore, as in the case of ExoMad, you can give the biochar away for free and encourage farmers or communities to mix it with their own compost and to apply it to the soils. This is one model. The other model, if you don't have the biomass available for free, is you need to sell the biochar because you can't survive on carbon credits alone. And selling the biochar means competing with the agrochemical industry, who's been around since the Green Revolution and has billions of and decades of R&D. And so that is a very competitive market, and therefore one of the barriers really is market adoption. We need farmers to use the biochar in order to gain the carbon credits to finance the operation. So it's a vicious cycle that needs to be broken, and of course funding and R&D to support that is hugely necessary. Another barrier I would say is the availability of the technology. As you know, chapeau to Ines, who's developed their own pyrolysis systems from scratch. At the moment, the technology is much more mature in Europe and the US. And for the global south to have affordable pyrolysis technology is more challenging. So we're all ultimately developing our own systems. However, this needs to scale up for it to be more affordable and more scalable in the global south. And it's CapEx heavy. So this is millions, if not billions of dollars that need to go into that. And maybe just one final would be, we need a social price of carbon. So at the moment, it's very arbitrary, the funding that is going to our projects to fund carbon removal, because we don't really know what is the cost of climate change, what is the cost of putting an extra ton of CO2 in the atmosphere, how is that social cost defined? And I think so this is where the research community really comes into play. If we could more accurately measure and communicate the real cost of continuing to emit carbon and not removing carbon, it would be easier to put a fairer price on carbon removal, and it would be easier for companies like us to survive and thrive in what is such a much needed solution. But there's still a lot of uncertainty of what is the real cost of climate change, what is the real cost of carbon, and therefore what is the true price of carbon removal. It's not cheap. even though it's cheaper than a lot of the other carbon removal technologies that Robert was mentioning, making biochar, making high quality, certified, permanent carbon removal biochar is not that cheap, and so therefore there's work to be done on the accounting and the pricing in my view.
Yes, what are the costs of climate change? That's a good point. So let's move to another topic which is relevant to biochar and to achieve carbon credits: permanence, the issue of permanence. So we know that the biochar, in order to be able to generate carbon removals, it needs to prove to stay there as long as possible, or in a time frame relevant to climate change. So how biochar can address that, and how do you manage this permanence issue? Francesco, you are the biggest biochar producer and cork producer, generating more corks from biochar. So how do you manage this permanence issue?
So the issue, I mean, the subject is permanence. Well, there's some few important pointers that we need to address when we talk about permanence. First of all, in the biochar business, you need to have a homogeneous feedstock. That is very important. And there's so many variables to ensure that permanence. For biochar, it's a high pyrolysis temperature that you need to be able to maintain. Then to ensure long permanence, you need, it's ideal to have like a centralized process. I know there's some decentralized processes that have to manage really well, but it's so much easier if you have one centralized process which is going to deposit batches of biochar that you can easily control in your lab. And if you have good feedstock and high pyrolysis temperatures, you will get a long permanence. And that's what we have with wood. Wood is an excellent material. And we have done, I know they're a little bit controversial, but they are, we have done the reflectancy test, and we have carbon content of 88%. And we got the 99.6 of the carbon present in our, of the 88% of our carbon present in biochar is permanent. So I know it's a test that it still has to be widely adopted, and it's some trains of thought that they adopted, some others not. That's there. And that's for the side of the product itself. But to ensure additional permanence on the ground, what we do is that, and that's an advantage we have because of we source from the sawmills, and then we give the biochar away for free, 50-kilometer radius around the plant. So this allows us to monitor with our DMRV to monitor the correct application in the soil. So we ensure and we issue a carbon credit only when we have verified visually and with the carbon sink attestation signed and with a GPS location uploaded. So we can have that assurance to our clients that the biochar has been applied into the soil, and then we can issue a carbon credit. So that's kind of the permanence that the assurance in permanence we do with Exxon and Green. So
yes.
You have to have a very traceable process.
Yes, the permanence is strictly related to the standard that you apply and to the certification process that you choose. So Ines, you have gone through this process. How do you manage? What do you measure in order to secure that permanence is achieved?
Yes, we look into it in two ways. The first one is the whole process, which follows the measurement, reporting, verification, all the way from the biomass gathering, that, as Francesco mentioned, is sustainable biomass. In our case as well, it's homogenized. Then in the processing, which is where more variables are found in the technology, and then controlling the temperature. And then in the last mile delivery, which then geolocates the carbon into a specific Google Map combination, which is everything traceable. Then on the product side, the biochar itself, we've done and we keep on doing in-house testing. So we do test as much as we can from the machines that we have here, mainly the carbon content, the HC ratio, and the OC ratio. There's this famous matrix of the durability tranches, depending if you have an HC ratio below 0.4 and an OC ratio below 0.05. And so if you guarantee that you're in that space, it's supposed to be on the 500-year plus. And then in the carbon content, we consistently are getting 85% carbon content, which is also pretty high. So altogether, it's moving us towards a high durability and permanence. And then finally, what we started to measure really recently, it's on the agriculture side of the product, so how carbon is stored. So none of us is going to live here more than 100 years, more than 1,000. But we're measuring the carbon over different periods and then doing some correlation analysis over years to come so that we can at least guarantee that 85% of the carbon content is stored in the soil matrix.
Thank you, thank you. I just want to remind to our participants that at IBI, what we do is to spread out knowledge. So we have just updated a manual that compares all the different standards and certification schemes, which is very useful if you are thinking of a possible potential biochar operation, biochar project. So we move to, we have just 2 minutes left. So I want Axel to address a question, and maybe Eloise, you too. Which directions define the future of biochar? What do you expect in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, if we're taking a 5 to 10 year horizon, first of all, biochar will remain the dominant CDR technology. And so that's good news. Biochar will need to move to much more scale, of course, we've discussed that, but much more professionalism. We talked about permanence, and there are some debates on whether biochar is permanent over hundreds of years or over millions of years. But there's a dirty secret with biochar. Biochar is carbon. It's carbon that could be waiting to be burned. And so I think we need collectively as an industry to work on making sure that the traceability, and my colleagues mentioned what they're doing, but the traceability is irreproachable. Because the day someone figures out that actually biochar has the same structure as mineral coal, and so someone might figure out, oh, why don't I use it as a fuel? And then, of course, the CO2 goes back into the atmosphere, and
I guess that is why it is required that the biochar goes.
Exactly. So you need to have this traceability that needs to be improved a lot. So I think biochar is on an uphill trend for more technology to get better product, better homogeneity, better stability, to lower costs, to improve the safety of operations, and to basically make sure that the MRV is totally bulletproof. If biochar solves these problems, then biochar will be, of course, the first technology to reach the gigaton, and will remain, hopefully, the lowest cost carbon removal solution. So there's a very bright future, but we cannot, I feel, extrapolate from the current state to a gigaton industry. A gigaton industry must professionalize, optimize, put more technology, put much more traceability, so that it becomes very, I'd say, bulletproof at scale. And that's complicated because biochar is highly decentralized. It's way easier to control, a big, say, DAC plant, for example, to use another carbon removal technology. And so I think that's the challenge of biochar. If we solve it collectively as an industry through of course, certification processes, through third parties, through MRV solutions and so on, then there's a really bright future. But we should not think that biochar will become a gigaton solution with what we're doing today. This is the very first baby steps of the industry. The industry 5 years ago did not exist. 5 years is sizable time. That's the age of net zero, but it's just the beginning. The issue is we don't have 50 years to do that. We have the next 5 years to do that. And that's the big challenge of the industry.
When I joined, when I learned and I fell in love with biochar, it was 20 years ago. Nothing like this existed. So, Heloise, please, your last words. We have just 30 seconds. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. I think like any systemic change that we envisage, we need the absolute involvement of multiple stakeholders. So I'm thinking EU regulations on nitrates is key to stimulate the fertilizer industry to use more carbon in products. Other industries should be on board, researchers for the social cost of carbon. The MRV is absolutely critical. And so it's going to take a huge effort from multiple stakeholders to really create this systemic change. And I think the first indicators are absolutely positive. We are the lowest cost and the highest in demand in terms of carbon removal. So the scene is set, and it's up to us, everyone on this panel and in this room, and those who watch this YouTube channel, to make this happen. It really is, I think, in the words of Kathleen Draper, is safe, sustainable, and shovel-ready solution to climate change. So let's go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Heloise, Francesco, Ines, Axel, for featuring your stories, and I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you for being here at our pavilion. This is a great achievement for us. This is the first time that not only biochar, but all the CDR solutions are featured in this way. So I want to thank you also very much, this fantastic lady there, that she made all of these things happen together with Chris and Alina, of course. And thank you also to my team that they are connected with the stream in the YouTube channel. And see you in the next meeting. Thank you.